Have you ever wondered how a single war can shape the course of history? Today, we will explore such a war. The Peloponnesian War, a seismic event that shook the very foundations of the ancient world, and whose reverberations are still felt in the annals of history. This monumental conflict pitted mighty city-states against one another, reshaping the geopolitical landscape in a way few events have. So, buckle up for a journey back in time, as today we will delve into the chronicles of the Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War, a devastating conflict, had its roots in power and fear. It was a conflict that sprang from the growing tensions between two of the most powerful city-states of ancient Greece, Athens and Sparta. Athens, a flourishing hub of culture and intellect, had grown in power and influence, largely through the formation of the Delian League. This alliance was initially formed to provide collective security against Persian invasions. However, over time, the Athenians began to use the League to extend their own empire, turning allies into subjects and amassing power. On the other side of the Greek world was Sparta, the epitome of military discipline and simplicity. The Spartans were part of the Peloponnesian League, a coalition of city-states that were allied under Spartan leadership. This league was a counterweight to the Delian League and the growing Athenian power. But as the Athenian Empire expanded, so too did Spartan fear and mistrust. The Spartans, with their warrior culture, viewed the rise of Athenian power as a direct threat, and it wasn't just about military might. Athenian democracy, its open society, its culture, and its wealth, all were seen as potential threats to the Spartan way of life. But it was more than just power politics. There were also economic factors at play. Athens had established itself as a maritime power, controlling the trade routes in the Aegean Sea. This created economic tensions as Sparta and its allies were largely land-based powers dependent on agriculture. And then there were the alliances. Both Athens and Sparta had a network of alliances with other city-states, often formed through coercion or intimidation. These alliances were complex and fragile, adding another layer of tension to the already strained relations between Athens and Sparta. With these tensions, the stage was set for a war that would engulf Greece. A war that was not just about territory or power, but also about two fundamentally different ways of life. A war that would test the strength and resilience of these two great city-states and ultimately reshape the ancient Greek world. The first phase of the Peloponnesian War, known as the Archidamian War, saw a clash of strategies. This initial stage of the war was a battle of wits as much as it was a battle of strength. On one side stood the Athenians, renowned for their naval prowess, and on the other the Spartans, a force to be reckoned with on land. Athens, under the leadership of Pericles, adopted a defensive strategy. They relied on their strong walls and their navy, the most powerful in Greece. The Athenians decided to avoid land battles against the superior Spartan infantry, instead focusing on naval raids against the Peloponnesian coastline. They hoped to wear down their enemies with a war of attrition, leveraging their sea power and financial reserves. Sparta, on the other hand, led by King Archidamus II, had a different approach. They aimed to draw out the Athenians onto the battlefield. Year after year they invaded Attica, the region surrounding Athens, destroying farms and homes, hoping to provoke the Athenians into a land battle. However, this phase of the war was not without its tragedies. The Athenians, huddled within their city walls, fell victim to a devastating plague. This plague, which struck in the second year of the war, wiped out a significant portion of the Athenian population, including their leader Pericles. The death toll was staggering, and it severely weakened Athens both militarily and morally. Yet, the plague did not mark the end of Athens. The city managed to recover, albeit slowly, under new leadership. And even with the loss of so many, the Athenians held their ground, refusing to be drawn into the open battlefield as the Spartans had hoped. In this era of strategies and stalemates, of resilience in the face of devastating loss, the Archidamian War set the stage for the brutal, drawn-out conflict that was the Peloponnesian War. Despite the setbacks, the war was far from over. The Archidamian War was merely the first act in a drama that would span over 2 decades, shaping the future of ancient Greece. Opening. A brief pause in the hostilities, known as the Peace of Nicias, soon gave way to an ambitious expedition. In the midst of the Peloponnesian War, a temporary respite arose, a flicker of peace in the turbulent times. Named after the Athenian general Nicias, who played a key role in its negotiation, the Peace of Nicias was agreed upon in 421 BC. Both Sparta and Athens, weary and battered from years of conflict, were eager for a break in the chaos. However, this peace was not as sturdy as its name would suggest. It was a peace built on shaky ground, fraught with political tension and lingering resentment. The underlying issues that had sparked the war were left unresolved, leaving the peace agreement as unstable as a house of cards. The agreement was regularly violated by both sides, and it became apparent that this peace was, in reality, a fragile truce. As the Peace of Nicaea slowly crumbled, Athens, seemingly unquenched by the taste of war, launched an audacious expedition against Sicily. The Sicilian expedition, as it came to be known, was a bold and risky venture. The Athenian leaders hoped to strengthen their empire and gain control over the valuable resources of Sicily. But it was a gamble that would ultimately end in disaster. The expedition was calamitous. The Athenians faced fierce resistance from the Sicilians and their allies, which led to devastating losses for Athens. Not only did they lose a significant portion of their fleet and many of their soldiers, but their failure also emboldened their enemies and weakened their position in the ongoing war. The Sicilian expedition was a disastrous misstep for Athens. Their overreach, driven by ambition and hubris, had cost them dearly. The expedition's failure reflected the inherent flaws in their strategy and leadership, and it shook the very foundations of their power. Closing. The failure in Sicily marked a turning point in the war. With this catastrophic defeat, the tide of the Peloponnesian War began to shift against Athens, setting the stage for the next chapters of this epic conflict. In the final phase of the war, Sparta took the upper hand. This marked the beginning of a period known as the Decisive War. Named after the Athenian town of Decisive, which Sparta captured and fortified, this phase of the conflict saw a dramatic shift in power. Sparta, under the leadership of King Aegeis II, set up a permanent fort in Decisive. This strategic move not only disrupted Athens' supply lines but also provided a safe haven for Athenian slaves, many of whom defected to the Spartan side. The loss of manpower and resources was a tremendous blow to Athens' economy and military strength. Meanwhile, Sparta was forging new alliances. The most significant of these was with Persia. Yes, the same Persia that had once been the common enemy of all Greek city-states. Persia saw an opportunity to weaken Athens, its old adversary, and willingly offered financial aid to Sparta. With Persian gold backing them, the Spartans built a powerful navy, capable of challenging Athens at sea, their domain of dominance. The final blow came when Lysander, the Spartan naval commander, defeated the Athenian fleet at Aegospotami. This victory left Athens virtually defenseless. Its once powerful navy was decimated, its grain supply lines from the Black Sea were cut off, and the city was under siege. The Athenians, desperate and starving, held out as long as they could, but the situation was hopeless. In 404 BC, Athens surrendered, marking the end of the Peloponnesian War. This surrender was more than just the end of a war. It signaled the fall of the mighty Athenian Empire, an empire that had once been the beacon of democracy and culture in the ancient world. The age of Athenian dominance was over, and the era of Spartan supremacy had begun. It was a seismic shift in power that would reshape the landscape of ancient Greece for years to come. The end of the Peloponnesian War marked a seismic shift in the ancient world. This brutal conflict, which pitted Athens against Sparta, came to a close in 404 BC, but the reverberations of its conclusion were felt far beyond the battlefields. In the immediate aftermath, Athens found itself under the oppressive rule of the 30 Tyrants, a pro-Spartan oligarchy. This regime, known for its brutal and repressive measures, was short-lived, but left a profound impact on the city and its citizens. The democratic ideals that had once flourished were now suppressed, and the city was left in a state of turmoil. But the effects of the war extended beyond the borders of Athens. The decline of the city-states, a direct result of the conflict, marked the end of the classical period of ancient Greece. The once mighty city-states, which had been the bedrock of Greek civilization, were now shadows of their former selves. Their decline was not only a loss in terms of political power, but also signaled a shift in cultural and intellectual influence. And so the Peloponnesian War did more than just determine the victor between Athens and Sparta. It reshaped the entire landscape of ancient Greece, causing a ripple effect that would continue to be felt for centuries to come. The Peloponnesian War, a testament to the destructive power of war, forever changed the course of Greek history.